Tonight on PBS News Weekend, the war in Ukraine dominates the Munich Security Conference as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says his country likely won't survive its war with Russia without U.S. support. Then the untold stories of millions of Africans lost at sea on the journey to the Americas and one woman's epic quest to document those lost slave ships. And we explore the benefits of an icy plunge as outdoor swimming in the middle of winter gains a following around the world.
It's really refreshing. I think it's an experience that every single person has to have once in their lifetimes.
Here in winter.
Yes, in winter, and I love it. It's really cold, but we love it.
Major funding for PBS News Weekend has been provided by...
In 1995, two friends set out to make wireless coverage accessible to all. With no long-term contracts, nationwide coverage, and 100% U.S.-based customer support. Consumer Cellular. Freedom calls.
The ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. And friends of the NewsHour. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ali Rogan. John Yang is away. The war in Ukraine has taken center stage at the Munich Security Conference as the Trump administration's lead Ukraine envoy said today there are no plans for Europeans to be included in any talks to end the war. On the sidelines of the conference, the Republican chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee said that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff will travel to Saudi Arabia in the coming days to begin the negotiations with Ukrainian and Russian officials. Earlier, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested in Munich that the days of the U.S. defending Europe may be over. Our Foreign Affairs and Defense correspondent Nick Schifrin spoke with Zelensky's Chief of Staff Andriy Yermak and asked him what message he has for Europe and the United States.
First of all, I think that President Zelensky brings the hope. The hope that just a new reality, Europe have to be united, Europe have to be strong.
Is that because the U.S. isn't a reliable partner?
In the life, it's necessary to be ready for everything. And if you ask my opinion, I think that new administration, President Trump, he wants to be strong leaders and be with the Europe. Ukraine, it's a part of the Europe. Ukraine is a future member of the European Union. And we need to be ready for any challenges.
What message did you receive from Vice President Vance? Did he commit to providing you security guarantees and negotiating with you rather than over you?
First of all, we received this message directly from President Trump, and we received from Vice President and other American officials. Commitment to continue to support Ukraine, understanding what is this war, and political will to end this war by just and lasting peace. President was very clear. Any plans which will be not prepared with Ukraine, we can't accept.
But did Vice President Vance commit to providing security guarantees and negotiating with you?
Look, he's understand it, and nobody can say, yes, exactly these security guarantees. We definitely know that this security guarantee have to be effective, strong, and real.
And it has to include the United States.
Absolutely. And the people recognized that this president, it's impossible that he's accepted something which will be against Ukrainian interests, which will be against the principles of our independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity.
But Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth this week suggested that Ukraine could not recapture all occupied territory. We've heard different messages from different U.S. officials. What's the impact on Ukraine on those mixed messages?
Of course, sometimes, as many people, you have the questions when you listen some not clear understanding messages. But our president, a very smart person and very honest person, and there his relation with President Trump, it's personal relations, very good, very honest.
Officials tell me that the U.S. has offered a deal to Ukraine in which the U.S. would own 50% of Ukraine's rare earths, and that Kyiv has rejected that offer. Why?
I can say that for this moment, we have not signed any documents. In the United States, it's our biggest strategic partners. We want to be in strategic partners for a long period of time. We want that in Ukraine will be a lot of American investments, including of development of our strategic minerals, strategic area of our industry like energy and others. Our partners and friends understand our positions. We will continue. It's not be any pause.
So it sounds like you're saying you haven't rejected anything. Your negotiations continue.
Negotiation continue.
President Zelensky today confirmed, I think for the first time, that Ukraine had lost more than 4,000 square kilometers. That's more than 1,500 square miles this year. How difficult is the front line, and is Ukraine continuing to lose territory?
Of course, the difficult situation. War is continue. I think it's time to be together, to be strong. And as I said, President yesterday to Vice President, we don't need and we want that United States will be between us and Russia. We want that United States will be in our side. And this is not because just it's side of international law, it's side of truth, and it's side of good.
Under your mock, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In the day's other news, 3 Israeli hostages are back with their families after Hamas released them as part of an ongoing ceasefire deal. All 3 men were taken hostage during the October 7th attack nearly 500 days ago. Among the released hostages, American-Israeli Sagi Dekelhen. During the reunion, the 36-year-old finally learned the name of his baby girl. She was born while Dekelhen was held in captivity. It's believed 73 hostages remain in Gaza, and possibly half of them are not alive. Following the release of the hostages, Israel sent busloads of freed prisoners and detainees to the Gaza Strip. Nearly 400 Palestinians were allowed to return to the territory. But there is uncertainty in the region. The first phase of the ceasefire ends in 2 weeks, and there has been little progress in negotiations about what happens next. The Internal Revenue Service could soon be the latest agency to see a slash in its employee headcount. It is now being widely reported that the IRS will lay off thousands of probationary workers in the middle of tax season. It's not known exactly how many will be affected, but the cuts could happen as soon as next week. Elon Musk and his so-called Department of Government Efficiency have called for the U.S. to, quote, delete entire agencies as part of its cost-cutting measures. 5 people in upstate New York are charged with torturing and killing a transgender man. Police say 24-year-old Sam Nordquist moved to the area near Syracuse in September, but lost contact with family members. After they reported him missing this month, an investigation led police to the suspects and the motel where Nordquist was last seen. Police later found Nordquist's body in a field where they say he was left in an attempt to cover up the crime after he endured months of torture. While the investigation continues, police have not ruled out labeling this a hate crime. State health officials in Texas are warning of a growing number of measles cases that have led to the worst outbreak in the state in decades. The Texas Department of Health said there are now 48 cases of the infection, with most of those in children and teens who are unvaccinated. As of now, the outbreak is mostly contained to a tight-knit religious community. Still to come on PBS News Weekend, the untold stories of captive Africans lost at sea during their forced journey to the Americas, and how work life has changed post-pandemic as more employers tell workers they must return to the office.
This is PBS News Weekend from the David M. Rubenstein studio at WETA in Washington, home of the PBS NewsHour, weeknights on PBS.
Between the 16th and 19th centuries, millions of captive Africans were forced onto slave ships and trafficked across the Atlantic Ocean. As many as 1,000 of these ships sank on the journey, and fewer than 20 of them have been found and properly documented. For our series Race Matters, I recently sat down with National Geographic explorer and writer Tara Roberts, who has been traveling the world documenting these underwater wrecks and the intrepid group of primarily Black divers working to uncover them. She tells these untold stories in her new memoir, Written in the Waters. Tara, thank you so much for joining us. Your journey that you relay in this book took you across 4 continents, but you got the idea for the project that became the book here in Washington, D.C. Tell us about that.
This was in 2016, and I got offered tickets to go and visit the National Museum of African American History and Culture, and it was there that my life completely changed. I saw a picture of a group of primarily Black women in wetsuits on a boat. I'd never seen a picture of Black women in wetsuits on a boat before, so it really struck something in me. I discovered that they were a part of this group called Diving with a Purpose, and that they spent their time searching for and documenting slave shipwrecks around the world. And that just, it floored me. It made me want to be a part of that work some kind of way.
When did you realize that your story and the histories that you were telling were all intertwined and could be part of this narrative?
It wasn't until I started to meet descendants of people who were on the ships that I started to think about my own ancestry, which is something that I didn't think about from the start, which maybe is a little surprising. I mean, I am a Black woman and it is the slave trade, but I just didn't think about it personally. And then traveling around the world and encountering so many different people from the African diaspora who had different understandings and perspectives of this history, it just had me question a lot of things.
You began your journey talking about how you were kind of trepidatious about going down this road, but you end it in this place of empowerment, writing, "On the bottom of the ocean, I feel agency instead of sorrow." How has this work empowered you?
I think that there's something about actually encountering real pieces of the past that makes the past clear and undeniable. But then there's something about the fact that I'm taking on this work, these other divers are taking on this work, historians, archaeologists, like all of these people are saying that we're not going to wait for anyone else to prioritize this history, that we are raising our hands and we're volunteering our time to bring this history back into memory. Like, that is not sad work. That is powerful work. I can say to the ancestors that I see you, I honor you, I remember you, I haven't forgotten. And that is really something for me to feel empowered around.
What were some of the most surprising facts that you learned about this history?
There were about 12,000 ships that participated in the slave trade. What I realized is that when I was growing up, I couldn't tell you the name of a single one of them, but yet I could tell you the name of the Mayflower. I could tell you all about the Titanic, but I couldn't tell you the name of a single one of these 12,000 ships. That didn't feel right to me. The other stat that just, it sits on my heart is the fact that approximately 1.8 million Africans died in the crossing from Africa to the Americas. I thought to myself, who's mourning that loss? It's an enormous amount of loss. Who even knows that? I didn't know that that many people had died in the crossing. It helps me see that there's a whole chapter of history that we just don't know.
We learn in the book that fewer than 1% of archaeologists are Black. That seems to have informed what parts of history get covered. Was that something that you learned more about on this journey?
Yes, absolutely. As I talked to and met more and more archaeologists, I actually asked them the same question. I was like, what difference does it make if there are more Black archaeologists or not? And what they said was really interesting. They said we ask different questions. We see different things. We're interested in different parts of the story. So to really get a complex, full story, you need all of these pieces. The other parts are just as important, but this part has really been missing. So I think it's just really important to have representation from a variety of people that are involved with this.
The book is Written in the Waters, a memoir of history, home, and belonging. Tara Roberts, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Allie.
The era of the remote worker is winding down. Before a mandate for federal workers to return to the office made national headlines, dozens of major private sector companies across the U.S., like Amazon, Starbucks, even Zoom, asked their workers to return to the office at least half of the week. It's a big shift for millions across the country, many of whom have come to prefer the flexibility of working from home. I recently sat down with Pamela Eyring, president of the Protocol School of Washington, to learn why back to the office may not immediately mean back to normal. Pamela, thank you so much for joining us. Private sector leaders have said that it's important to go back to work in the office because it increases productivity. What do you make of that?
Well, Allie, I believe that there are some merits of going back to work in person. I mean, think about the benefits of collaborating with your teammates and colleagues, for the leaders and your supervisor to see you working, actually working, and being able to go to that supervisor and say, hey, I have this great idea, or brainstorming with colleagues.
What's your advice to employers? It's been almost 5 years since we started dealing with remote work, and now workers are in some cases going back to an entirely unfamiliar working environment. How do you advise employers to navigate this phase?
Well, I think they need to be encouraging, and be not so firm and hardcore about it. Get them excited. Use the psychology of, understanding what they've been through. So psychologically, how do we make it easier for them? And I think one way is to have a good working environment. Make sure that they have their desk or a desk or somewhere to work that's theirs. Make sure all the computers are updated and they have their monitors and they have a setup. So it's just like when you're onboarding a new employee, that you're ready for them. You're welcoming them. Maybe even have some fun, maybe some lunch and learns, or even having some team time to make it more fun to be back.
What are some of the challenges that employers are telling you that they're having when welcoming employees back?
Well, the first one that I've been getting a lot of, because we've had an increase of need for training, is business attire. Because they've been behind the screen for going now 5 years, and they don't really know how to dress appropriately in that workspace. And we want to showcase our professionalism, whether we're on a Zoom call or in person. They can't wear their jammies. You have to wear shoes, Not that it's that bad, but I think, it's been a long time, and so they need to refresh what is business casual today, for instance.
And to that end, we're navigating a number of generations here. I mean, spanning from Gen Z all the way back to baby boomers and everything in between. So how do you navigate that when people have different generational approaches to these things, different cultural touch points? How does that all work?
Well, first I would say is, especially boomer biases. Don't have any biases. It really comes down to communicating expectations and sharing what is professionalism. So I think with the generations, I think the young generation should listen and observe and watch the behaviors of their, maybe older generation of colleagues. And then also they should be listening to them and understand, have dialogue. What's the best way to communicate with you? I'm not a Slack person. I don't use Slack. So, is there another way we can communicate professionally? Perhaps I like emails, or maybe I like text messages. And then, collaborate on that and have that discussion, what works for you, and then come to a compromise.
There was a recent Pew Research Center survey that showed nearly half of hybrid workers said that they wouldn't want to work where they work anymore if they had to come into the office again. What do you think employers and managers can do to help their employees better adjust to coming back to the workplace?
Ask them. We think that we know what they want, and we don't. I think by going to them and maybe doing a quick survey, having some discussion about it, and say, what can we do to make it more comfortable for you? Perhaps they're concerned about, the drive, the commute now. I can't get to the office on time, and, maybe flex hours are needed. Now they have a child in school and they need to drop them off. Sort of compromise a little bit and help those individuals that, now have different needs and ask them.
Pamela Eyring, president of the Protocol School of Washington. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Allie.
It's the middle of winter in the Northern Hemisphere, and it might not feel like the season for jumping in the water, but more and more people are finding an icy plunge is invigorating. William Brangham takes a look at the world of winter swimming and its potential benefits and risks.
Even though the temperatures are plunging, so are these swimmers. A brave group in the northern Chinese city of Harbin, taking a sub-zero jump one by one into the icy water.
I felt prickling all over my body. The water here is about 10 degrees Celsius lower than it is in my hometown, but it still made me feel blissful.
These hardy souls are part of the city's winter swimming team, which boasts hundreds of members. They say they train throughout the year to develop the physical strength and mental fortitude needed to dive into pools carved from ice during the city's annual winter festival.
Once these challenges are overcome, you will feel the endless joy brought by winter swimming.
Endless joy or crazy obsession? In the Czech Republic, locals there take to the cold waters of the Vltava River in early January to mark the end of the Christmas season.
Well, I've stuck with it. It's a bit of an addiction now.
Once you've tried it, you have to keep doing it.
In the Danish capital, Copenhagen, it's a tourist draw to brave the icy water.
It's crazy. It's really refreshing. I think it's an experience that every single person has to have once in their lifetimes.
Here in winter.
Yes, in winter. And I love it. It's really cold, but we love it.
Devotees of winter swimming are convinced these bone-chilling dips boost their health and happiness.
Back in the day, I used to get leg cramps, and ever since I started winter swimming, it has stopped.
I'm 76 years old, but I've never got a cold because I swim in winter and I feel very well. It brings me good health.
Online, advocates say the benefits are many, helping with everything from migraines to arthritis and even weight loss.
It boosts the immune system.
It really improves your mental health.
Great blood circulation, helps you sleep better.
But not everyone is convinced.
Some of the claims that you'll see that are splashed over the web, we don't actually have good, robust evidence to be able to support those claims at the moment.
Heather Massey studies cold water immersion and swimming at the University of Portsmouth in England.
The level of science is far more powerful from the side of it having negative effects.
Massey says the initial plunge into icy water is shocking. And the body reacts instantly. Shortness of breath, higher blood pressure, even impaired cognitive function.
Definitely make sure you're well fit and healthy before you go in. If you've got any underlying health problems or you're not feeling great, going in cold water is not going to help.
She says even healthy people should proceed with caution. There can be very real risks of hypothermia and heart attacks. But Massey is quick to add there could be health benefits, and she and other scientists are looking into what they might be.
It may be that it's a placebo effect, but if it's a placebo effect and it works, well, it's still an effect.
Evidence or not, these swimmers can't seem to stay away from their icy plunges and the thrills that come with it.
It's so cold, I was freezing. I was saying, if I can do this, I can do anything in the whole world. That's my feeling.
For PBS News Weekend, I'm William Brangham.
And there's more online. This week's edition of PBS News Weekly takes a look at President Trump's government shakeup and what the implications are on a wide range of policies. That's available on the PBS News YouTube page. And that's our program for tonight. I'm Ali Rogan. For all of my colleagues, thanks for joining us. See you tomorrow.
Major funding for PBS News Weekend has been provided by the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. This program was made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.